All right, what's up everyone? I wanted to go ahead and finally do a review, long-term review of my Maui 28 G3s. I've had these for about a year now, almost exactly a year. I started full-time about a year ago and picked these up. I was looking at the LDs for a very, very long time and was lucky enough to actually bite the bullet and pay the price for them. I've been super, super happy. I got the bags to go with them, so taking a look at that. The bags are okay. I really wish they were a little bit better quality. They've held up okay, but really it's the zippers that, I seem to be the weak point here. You can even see maybe some of the threads here on the inside, just already starting to kind of go. I mean, I do use them a lot. I use them full time, but still, I would expect a little bit more. The bags are pretty expensive. And, I really wish there was a little bit more out of them. Taking a look at the tops, I did have an instance where I bent one of these aluminum grills. I was able to go ahead and actually bend it back out. I have a whole video about that, just showing you the quick process of actually how to remove the speaker grills on both the tops and the bottoms. And hopefully that helps someone out if in need. But it was pretty easy to put back together. Can't really even tell much of a difference. The foams have held up pretty well over the past year. These pins here, they do loosen up. Right now they're actually pretty tight, but they are something that I tend to check every so often. They have been known to loosen up. Luckily, I haven't lost any, but these things do come loose once in a while, so something to be aware of. But very clean connection down at the bottom. Very nice design speakers. They have the full, and this is one of my favorite things when I talk about the speakers to the clients is, there's 15 speakers in each one speaker. And, I love explaining it that way, and it really makes it sound that way as well. Like the sound quality is actually, matching that. You don't get the wood on the columns here, but it is a very nice material, very solid material. They do have the dampening in the back to make it cardioid, so that way all the sound is from the front, and then you kind of get blocked off in the back, which is really nice for our hearing. As DJs, we don't need to be blasted with the same amount of sound that we're using for 100 plus people. So really nice. And the biggest difference I feel like with the drivers here compared to a lot of the other ones is you get the dedicated high frequency horns at the top. So there's actually 2 high frequency horns, and then you have the rest of your 12 mid frequency drivers. And the mid frequency drivers are 3.5 inch, which I feel like is a much more appropriate size compared to like the 2-inch drivers that are in the J8s, the Evox, or some of the other column array systems. They really try to get the full range of sound out of these mid-range speakers, these 2-inch or 3-inch speakers. The Maui's did it right, I feel. They have the dedicated high horns, which makes them super efficient. And then you have your mid-range drivers, which are actual just normal speakers, very, normal size, mid-range, 3.5 inch. So they can give a beautiful wide dispersion, and they don't have to do the full frequency spectrum. So I think that's one of the main things that help to set this apart. So here's the other bag. This bag is much more broken. You can see all the seams maybe are coming apart there. The zippers just totally went missing. So really sucks. These were expensive bags, but it's time to get this one replaced. And yeah, I mean, they still hold together though. They still do the job. You keep the handle tied up like that, and it's good. So one of my favorite things looking at it is the size. Like, I love how the speakers just match the size of the subs. So it's just so cool to just, put them on, and the length of your tops are pretty much the exact length of the 2 bottoms when put together, and same thing on the width. So, they just fit so nicely together. The thing is though, you gotta be very careful of putting stuff on here. It's very sensitive. This is aluminum, and I've already made the mistake of, probably putting something too heavy. It did bend it. I was able to bend it back, but now I'm extra cautious, and I would recommend anyone else who has these, be extra cautious of what you lay on top of it, because it's really easy to kind of set it up like this, and then, you know, I'm starting to throw bags on top. So gotta be really aware of what's in the bags. If there's anything that, you know, is very hard, I don't wanna just be setting it down there, and especially leaving it on here. I feel like the weight over time, especially if there's any heat, you know, maybe it's in the back of your car for a little bit, overnight, whatever, during the morning, anything, it's just gonna warp the aluminum, you know, with any type of weight. So be extremely careful with that. But I love the size. I love the size of it, and you know, they're pretty nice with their design. You know, I can easily pick up both of them and move them around. I'll set them off to the side here for now. So here are the subs. I love the subs, honestly. For a 12-inch, they sound amazing, and that's partly due to what they're made out of. So they have the birch plywood, and they have the polyurea cover, which is basically like a waterproof cover. You know, they would use this in like concrete, or like maybe like you can think of like the back of a bed, like a truck bed lining. It's almost like that, but it's not really that rough. It does still have some, you know, roughness to it, but it's not like a super, you know, rough texture like you would get on a bed lining or anything like that. But it's the same concept, you know, protects everything. It gives it kind of a nice watertight coating on it. I wouldn't say that they're like waterproof, but it's just a good peace of mind. So really quick on the bags. The bag has held up a lot better than the top bags. You know, they do pretty well. It's a nice design. I like how they have the handles on all the sides. I got the power cable in here. It fits it nicely. So it's cool to have it all together. And then what's nice about these bags is I like to put them up like this, turn them upside down, and then now this is my kind of catch-all. So when I'm loading up, I fill these things up with my empty bags, things I'm, you know, unloading. It's catching it all here. It's keeping it in a nice, you know, safe spot out of the way. So I think that's a pretty cool feature, a nice way to use the bags. But yeah, pretty happy with the tops. Excuse me, with the bottoms. So the speaker, it's been awesome, man. I mean, you could tell that it's a little bit big for a 12-inch. I'll give it the lift test here. So it's fairly heavy, but it's definitely not the heaviest thing in my, you know, the heaviest gear that I own, which is really, really nice. You know, this is not gonna be as heavy as a flake case with a couple spotlights. And so it's a good size. It's very maneuverable. I'm able to bring it up, you know, into my SUV, no problem. Of course, I would have loved to go with the 15s, the Maui 44s, but they were about another $1,000 per speaker. And the weight I was a little concerned with as well. You know, a lot of times I'm working solo. Sometimes I have assistants, but you know, I never want to just rely on needing someone to be there to make sure I can make it happen. So these just give me super big peace of mind, and I think they're appropriate, you know, for most weddings, up to like 150 people, 5,000 square feet. It's been perfect. So yeah, there's the speakers. Let me go ahead and maybe give a look at the back here. So here we are at the back of the Mauis, and you know, we can see the heat dispersion here. This does get pretty hot. You know, I've had to get fairly hot after some gigs, some longer gigs, but nothing too crazy. We got your standard, you know, power in, power button. We got a left and right in. So it does take a stereo input. You can run this in stereo, and then you can send that stereo signal out to another speaker. So, you know, if you had them spread really far apart and you wanted to make sure you had a full, you know, stereo spread in each section, then that could be a good option. But most of the time, you know, we're just running in the one on each side, usually the left and then the right. And that's it. It's a super simple, you know, interface. We have our volume knobs there, and yeah, it just doesn't get much more simple than that. So I normally run the volumes right around 12 o'clock or so. That seems to be a good spot for me. And let's go ahead and plug some stuff in. All right, so we got the Mauis plugged in. So one of my biggest concerns with this speaker is the time that it takes to start up. I mean, I've used it a bunch of times. It's always started. Well, there was one time. So when I first got it, and I first had the speaker, the very first time I took it out, one of these speakers did not turn on when I flipped it up. And super easy return process, took care of it, gave me another one, took it back. You know, it was fine. Hasn't been ever a problem since, but let me go ahead and show you guys, you know, maybe how fast or not fast this thing turns on. And it just concerns me every time. I'm just like waiting, please be okay. And you know, it just takes quite a bit of time. So here we go, we're gonna flip the switch and let's see. And now it's on. So you could see, even after I flipped the switch, there was no lights for a second. And then it took its time to kind of boot itself up. Now, you know, I understand this is a digital speaker, you know, so this is like basically a computer starting up. You know, it's making sure everything is good, and then it's going to convert our analog signal here back into digital and process it with its DSP and then shoot it back out. So, you know, I understand it's not just the amplifier that it has to turn on. There's other things going on as well. So, you know, that's why, of course, it takes a while to turn on, but if it doesn't stress me out every time. So yeah, that's the back. We got it plugged in. So yeah, I normally run about 12 o'clock on the main dial and about 12 o'clock on the sub. That's generally my starting point, and then I'll control the volume from my mixer. And you know, sometimes I'll run it up though, especially like outside. I may run it up to like 3 o'clock or so, but then I'm definitely gonna be hitting the limit a lot and potentially going into that clipping, which I've definitely hit the red light a little bit, you know, backed off, because it gives you a lot of leeway. Like, this speaker is designed to be opened up fully, and it has its signal processing where it's not gonna distort. But of course, you always wanna use those good practices. I definitely wanna get a video going. Hopefully it's up by, you know, soon. If it is, I'll put a card here. But yeah, go ahead and check out how to properly gain stage, you know, your system, and how to actually, you know, move your signal flow along, so that way it's a strong signal flow and you're not relying on your amplifier to make up all the difference. So so yeah, this, for the applications like weddings, is perfect. I mean, I think a lot of people kind of get hung up on, you know, what's going to be the best two speakers for, you know, a certain size room or a certain amount of people. In my mind, if you are just looking for a couple of speakers, you don't need it to do 300 or 400 people, right? If you're getting into a crowd that is 300 or 400 people big, then you're gonna need more than 2 speakers, right? You never go to an actual concert or outside, you know, whatever festival, and you see only 2 speakers on the stage, right? They have multiple speakers, multiple subwoofers. So if your crowd is getting over that 150, 200 person, then, you know, in my mind, it's better to just increase the amount of speakers rather than increase the size. So as much as I would have loved to have the 15s and been flexing with that big bass, it's been plenty. And I think now going forward, I would rather buy more speakers rather than, you know, trade these in and say get a 44. Because it's just not going to be worth it, you know, like the extra weight I'm going to be carrying around, the potential to like really blast out the room and have loud sound is just going to be way more appropriate to just have the speakers that fit most spaces. And then if I need to get to that 200, 300 level, then I can easily just get another sound system involved. And I think that's the more appropriate way to do it. So, you know, I always rock these two. And then I have my third speaker, which is the EV8. That's always playing fill and doing what it needs to do. So, you know, I feel like if I focus these on the dance floor, you know, 50, 100 people, you know, I've even had 150 people in a full room. I've done a 5,000 square foot room, you know, at the Hyatt, and, you know, because those rooms are very similar, and so you can get an idea of what it is, and it's done fine. You know, I've never been in a position where someone has asked me to turn the volume up, but I have been in multiple positions where people have asked me to turn it down, right? It's all too likely that, you know, especially doing weddings, we're gonna get placed in an awkward spot. We're gonna get placed near some tables. So, you know, the likelihood of us really having just 300 or 400 people in the center is just unlikely. And if it is going to be that type of event, again, plan accordingly, and I would get more speakers. You know, just 2 speakers are just not going to be enough to just widely disperse across the whole crowd. You'd really want to get some extra fill speakers, maybe a center fill, maybe an over top fill, maybe some side fills, depending on how the space looked and how many people you had. So yeah, I think they're super, super appropriate. I think the volume levels are perfect. And I think what you're paying for really over anything is the sound quality. The sound quality is amazing. I mean, it just fills every corner of the room with incredible sound. Multiple times people have come up to me and complimented me on the quality of the sound. And it's just such a good feeling. I mean, as a person who's into recording, mixing, mastering, that's what I've been doing besides DJing for just as long as DJing. It just matters a lot to me that things sound good, you know, especially if we're going into like maybe those cocktail times where you're not playing just that dance music, you're playing like maybe that jazz music, that music that needs to have some dynamics in it, that needs to have that full range. These speakers just take care of it. You know, when you're looking at those horns, those boxes on the tripods, you know, I'm sorry, but it's just like, why would I want to do that? Why would I want to put a horn in a room? You know, like it 100% makes sense outside. And I think that's where, again, these do lack, is outside. That's where I've had to push them the most. But, you know, everywhere else, I mean, they're just perfect. So yeah, super, super in love with these speakers. The couple gripes, you know, I went over with the mixer, but overall super good. You know, the only other thing I would really recommend here is an extra long IEC power cable. You know, the one that they gave you is maybe 10 feet or so. You know, I'd really recommend getting like a 25-foot IEC cable and a 25-foot audio cable. And then that way you're just super versatile. You can get a 50-foot spread on them. That's about as much as you're ever gonna need. You know, unless you really have to run a remote, you know, setup, which in that case, you might want to look into using a fill speaker or something else like that. So I think upgrading the IEC cable is one of the only things that, you know, I would really recommend with this. You know, looking into the bags, just be careful with the bags. The bags were a big issue for me. Another thing that I was missed out on is there's no wireless stereo. So if I Bluetooth to one speaker, I can't just wirelessly set up and have both speakers running off the same Bluetooth connection. I was really disappointed when I found that out. I think that's only on the 44s. And yeah, I mean, it's been a super good speaker. I think I nailed everything that I want to talk about on it. You know, I know the specs are all out there, so I didn't really want to go too deep into the specs. But you know, it's been a super good experience. Why don't we go ahead and run some sound through it? Let me go ahead and set up the columns, and we can take a quick look at some of the lights on the back and some sound running through it. So we'll go ahead and set up the columns here. There we go. All right, so let's set up some Bluetooth here just to play a little bit of sound. So we're holding down the pairing button, pretty standard. It starts flashing. Turning on the Bluetooth here on my phone. And it should come up here. Volume up. So yeah, you could see the limit light coming on. I couldn't really get it to clip here because I'm just using Bluetooth. I don't think the signal is going to be loud enough, but hopefully that gives you a good idea of what the limit light would look like. Obviously, I don't run it all the way up. I've already explained, I'm usually around that 12 o'clock, so it's just kind of touching that yellow just a little bit. I'm fine with that because, anything, once that limit light comes on, the speaker's just not gonna let you feed much more volume into it. That's its protection. That's how it gets over, not distortion. So, you can get some perceived loudness because you're compressing the signal, you're limiting that signal. But at the end of the day, it maybe isn't gonna be true loudness the more you turn that up. Once that limit light starts hitting, it's really gonna prevent you from really blowing the speakers, which is a good thing. It's one less thing to worry about. So once I get them set, I get them dialed in on the back here, I can just go ahead and control it from my mixer, and it ends up being a lot better that way. So hopefully this helped some people out. Hopefully this gave a lot of good info for you guys to think about. If there's anything else that you're curious about that I missed, definitely let me know in the comments below. And super appreciate you all rocking with me and checking this one out. And we'll catch you on some more in the future.